This thing I thought was pretty fun. Here's like a 10-pound sledgehammer. And here's a little thing that I printed using the Build Sonic Ray. It's like a tool thing. Mostly just grips through weight. Oops. All right, there we go. So I had a problem, and to help me solve my problem, I reached out to Siraya, who sent me 2 different resins. They sent me the Build Sonic Gray. They also sent me this Fast Tough Navy Gray. Now this is the Build Sonic Gray, and this is the Fast Tough Navy Gray, not to be confused with the Fast Navy Gray. And this one right here was specifically a very different resin than what I've used in the past. Again, the Build Sonic Gray. So in this video, let's go through and discuss what my problem was and how specifically this resin right here solved it for me. I also want to apologize. The last video I did was back to school. Maybe I was a little too eager for the kids going back to school because my little son came home with a really awful cold, which he's given to me. And so I have a really bad cold. If I sound nasally or congested, that's why. Yes, I'm struggling from a horrible cold. Anyway, let's just get on with the video and enough of that. And just to make sure everything is kosher, this video is sponsored by Siraya. Now they sent me 2 bottles of each of these resins. However, I use those bottles in the solving of the problem I hinted to earlier. These bottles I bought by myself. I just want to let everyone know though that it doesn't matter if a video is sponsored or not. I'm gonna say or do whatever I want to do in the videos regardless. I've never done any video with anyone where they censor or say what I can and cannot say. It's always, here's the product and tell us what you think. And that's what this video is. I'm going to tell you what I think about these 2 resins and a couple others in this video I'll throw in there just for like a good comparison. Anyway, let's get going on with the video. So first, what was the problem that I reached out to Siraya to solve for me? Well, I had an artist reach out to me in order to print a series of models. These models were uniquely designed by this artist and they wanted them printed. They ranged from like a miniature to 200 millimeters and 300 millimeters in height. Now these were then gonna be shipped off to a professional artist in California to paint them to a very unique kind of a paint job. And then after that, they were gonna be used for expos. And so what we really needed was a material that was gonna survive more than other materials were. And that's when they recommended to me these 2 resins. Again, this is the Build Sonic Gray and the Fast Tough Gray. And the thing was just to choose whichever one I thought was best for the project. So what I did is I ran some brake tests, you know, my brake machine. So I ran that test and to see which one was the best. I also, just for the fun of it, threw in what has been one I've been using for a long time, which is the Fast ABS-like Navy Gray with 20% of the tenacious Obsidian Black mixed in. So with that, let's start with that. Let's get those tests up and show you what those look like and kind of let you look at the data between these 3 different resins. And then let's kind of go and talk about how the project worked out. I also ran into another user on the Lychee Slicer Discord. If you haven't joined that yet, come join us over there. I would definitely love it if you said hello. He was struggling with trying to print these box carts. Now, this is really like a spaceship box cart truck. You can think of it trains in space. And he was really struggling with keeping dimensional accuracy and warping during post-cure or just sitting on the shelf. And that's also where this particular one, the Build, really shined. If you're doing like trains or, you know, space trucks or whatever you're trying to do, or big buildings, you know, fabs for terrain and whatnot, this is actually probably one of the best resins you can use for that because its post-cure shrinking is fantastic. We'll put the numbers up here on the screen so you can see the data here of that post-cure shrinking and some of its stats. However, I'm going to put all these things to the test right here in this video. So stay tuned to learn, well, as much as I can learn about these resins and if they are right for you and your particular application. For the Discord user that I was helping that was trying to print this, I don't know, maybe it's a space truck, I don't really know what it is, but it ended up being like this box thing, which if you've tried to print boxes or walls with resin, you probably know how difficult that could possibly be. Especially with this one, you know, it needed to be dimensionally accurate, no warping, no gaps, it needed to be airtight. You know, it's a space truck. One of the pieces that was a little challenging is this thing. It's just a whole bunch of tubes in literally every single direction possible. Orientation was a bit of a difficult thing. It's not gonna break, it's pretty tough. And yeah, it came out really, really well. Very dimensionally accurate and again, very tough. The next thing was of course this space box right here. There's no cracks. It's not glued, it's just kind of snapped together. There are no cracks, all the seams are perfect. I'll put some B-roll up for pictures so you can get an idea of what this looks like. And yeah, it goes together really, really well. But just kind of show you what parts this is, so if you can't tell from the pictures, there's a lid on it that kind of snaps right off. There's this back right here that snaps right off. And this is very flat, no warping. And this has all been cured, so, you know, post-cure shrinking and stuff like that. This has also been printed about a week ago, maybe a little over a week ago. And this little panel right here. And then, of course, the main shape of the box. All this came together really, really well. This is all the first attempt at printing it. No issues whatsoever. I'm very impressed with this particular resin right here. And again, this is the Build Sonic Gray resin. So if you're doing like space trucks, trains, rails, RC, cars, stuff like that, I would really look at using this resin. It seems to be pretty well for it. However, this is a little bit subjective. So let's look at some objective data. For that one, I've got these little parts right here. Maybe you've seen some of my other videos where I test resin before. These are the break tests that I do. I've got one that's round for bending, flat for bending, and then these dog bones right here, which are for tensile strength testing. So let's go through that. Let's test these resins. Let's also test in the navy gray with the tenacious, the one I've been using for a long time, and just see how all these kind of stack up against each other in a more objective testing. And to be doing that, I'm gonna be using this guy right here. Oh, it's very heavy. This is my break 'em, smash it, bend it, crush it tester right here. So we're gonna take this guy and then we're gonna smash it, break it, test it, and check out the results. The next test that I did is the Shore Hardness D test. This is testing the surface hardness of the resin. The D is set for like hard plastic, so I think it should be the appropriate one for testing resin. Anyway, let's look at that data here. So right here we see that the Siraya build rocked it with an average of 92.5, the highest on the chart. And as we go down to more bendable resins, that goes down, which is actually good. That's what we want to see. We want to see that our data that we're collecting works with each other, so we're not getting like some weird outlier that confuses everything. So far, there have been no outliers. Everything's making sense. To kind of explain what this means, so let's take the frozen RPG gray here, which actually has the most elongation. I'll show that chart here coming up. Elongation meaning it's bent. It's like this silicone cup right here. It's easy to manipulate, but it's not going to shatter or explode as I kind of warp it around. Where the Siraya Build Sonic Gray right here is a resin that you want to use for applications that you don't want them to deform. You want them to hold their shape. Kind of more like my mug here with my lemon water in it for my throat, because like I said at the beginning of this video, I'm a little bit sick. You know, if I try to crush this, I can't. It's, you know, very hard. But of course, the second I bend it a little bit, it's just gonna explode and shatter, and I'll get lemon water all over the room, which I won't do. And so what we can see here is this, basically the data here shows that. So depending on what your application is, what you're trying to print, different resins are gonna be good or bad for different things. But I just wanna show that the Siraya definitely have a good surface hardness overall. The next test that I ran are these resin shrink tests. Now, there's a little bit of a flaw in these ones, and that's because the temperature in which you test these changes the results. And so there's something that maybe some smart of you can let me know in the comments, but it's something I've wondered about. So let's say I'm printing my resin at 22 degrees Celsius in the vat, and let's say it gets up to like 24, right, where it's curing due to the reaction. Does that mean that I should always measure my stuff at 24 degrees Celsius because that's the temperature in which it was calibrated? Because that's the temperature in which I'm printing it? Let me know, again, let me know in the comments below if that's how I should be doing it. But what I can say is that I ran these at room temperature of my studio, which is closer to like 75 degrees Celsius, 75, 76. And then what I did is I went through and I put them in the freezer for about 5 minutes and cooled them down. Didn't make them freezing, just cooled them down a little bit to maybe an environment that's not a recording studio. And here's the results on that one. So we can see, again, aligns with everything that we've seen so far, is that the one with the most accuracy, or the one that's less, doesn't change the temperature as much, is the Build Sonic Gray. Now these right here should measure 100 millimeters, these should measure 50, and these should measure 20. And this one overall is pretty dang good. Same with the Fast Navy Gray, same with the Tough Navy Gray. These Siraya resins overall are quite stable, so comparing them against each other is getting very, very small deviations of each other. What I'll probably need to do is go through and actually create a test for these ones where I'm creating an environment where I'm testing these things at 3 different temperatures: a warm, the temperature in which I'm printing them at, and then a cold temperature. And then controlling that one and printing all the resins that I've done and running this test against it. That's gonna take a lot of time, and I'm a madman for doing as much as I'm doing right now, so adding more to it just makes sense for my life. All right, so moving on. And now we're finally to the test break data. Now this chart could probably be a little confusing, a little bit overwhelming, so feel free to pause it if you wanna look through this data. Pretty much what we have is max load, which is the bars, and the distance at break, or the elongation, which is the line. Now, I personally find this a little bit difficult to kind of really look at. So what I've done is I've gone through and I've stacked them in a different chart. So first I want to start with stacked by basically load at break. So this is just taking all the values of all the different tests that I did and how much load was on that test when it shattered, and I'm stacking them all together. And it looks like this. So what we have here is that, again, that build sonic gray with the best shore hardness, the best shrink and resistance to temperature is also the one it requires a lot of force to break this one. Here at the top at 608, followed closely behind by the tough navy gray, and then now we're down to the Formlabs tough gray, which is a rather tough resin. Now if we go through and look at these stacked by distance at break, I guess you can see down here, next one in the line is the fast navy gray with the 20% tenacious. Definitely not as tough as some of the other ones. But let's see how that looks at distance to break, because elongation, meaning, it's not just how much force it takes, but it's this guy. How much will it bend before it breaks? Because depending on your application, one value might be better than the other. So distance at break here, we can see that the Formlabs Tough Gray and the Frozen RPG Gray do very, very good on this chart. They're definitely much more flexible. So again, depending on your application, it's going to make sense. And remember how that RPG Gray was a little bit softer than the other one. And it makes sense now with the data we're looking at. And then down here you can see the Build Sonic Gray definitely has less elongation of break, but everything else is getting very, very close between the Navy Gray and then with the Tenacious. You can see that Tenacious brings that up quite a bit. It's definitely helping a little bit to have that. And if you don't know, the Tenacious is a very flexible resin that I'm putting in Navy Gray 20%. And then the Build Tough Gray right here at 25.14 comes in at sixth place for elongation, which is bad for how kind of tough it is. If we look back at the toughness, it's doing pretty good. It's a good balance. And then we have stacked at distance and break. So this is kind of putting everything together and stacking it. It's not the best way to look at it, because really this chart is kind of owned by the values of the load, and the values of distance are so small. Maybe there's a way I could try to average out the data so they're weighted differently. But as you can see here, the Build Sonic Gray, again, because it's so tough, pushes ahead really in the chart when they're all stacked together. And then the Navy Gray and then the Formlabs Tough Gray comes in at second. So it's interesting to look at the data like this, kind of stacked together. But the point of this, of showing you all this, is to kind of, I saw in some of the comments of some of the other videos, people were a little bit upset that I didn't be more broad with the data that I was presenting. And I tried to reach out to a few people and kind of say, hey, that's just because I'm still collecting and creating this database of data as I create these videos. So hopefully with this right here, you can kind of see the vision of what I'm working on. And as I create more and more content and more of these videos, we're going to get more and more data. But yeah, that's the elongation of break and the tensile strength test of the Siraya resins right here. Overall, incredibly impressive. All right, so now let's talk about accuracy for these three resins right here. But primarily, we're going to be focused on the two for this video, which is going to be the Tough Navy Gray and the Build Sonic Gray. But I threw in some pictures of the Fast Navy Gray, just kind of to have that comparison as well for accuracy. Now, the way I do accuracy is first I calibrate. I calibrate to boxes of calibration. If you don't know, boxes of calibration is not a dimensionally accurate calibration part. It's a tensile strength calibration part. However, dimensional accuracy is a prerequisite of tensile strength, hence why you need to have like the boxes, which are designed for dimensional accuracy, plus the pillars, which are the tensile strength aspect. Whole video on how to use those over here. If you go check that out on the Lychee Slicer channel. While you're there, make sure to like and subscribe. Anyway, so over here, let's look at the picture I took. Now this picture right here there's a little piece on the side of boxes of calibration that's designed for vertical accuracy. Now, vertical accuracy, it's more designed for the resin, less about calibration. Calibration can obviously help a lot. Again, you'll find out about that if you go watch that video I just discussed. But in here, yeah, we're just looking at Z accuracy. And what I can see is that the Build Sonic Gray is actually pretty decent. What on this test we're looking for is just any pillowing. And of course on the squares and the circles, we're just looking to see if they're filled in or not. And then for the circles over here, this is mostly just to make sure we have all of them and that the more round, the better. And so first comparison is going to be the Build Sonic Gray versus the Tough Navy Gray. I think it's pretty easy to see that the Build Sonic Gray definitely wins against the Tough Navy Gray. Tough Navy Gray not doing great in this test. And then you've got the Fast Navy Gray plus 20%, wins this test. It's actually doing a very good job, much more crisp. Here you can see we're getting some light through on some of those holes and pins. This one's getting 4 and 4, this one's getting 3 and 3, and this one's getting 2 and 2. So the holes are closing up more, but overall we're getting better accuracy of the Build Sonic versus the other ones. For the next test, let's look at XY accuracy. On that, I'm going to be using the HD Cube. Here we can see the Sonic Gray. And what I'm looking for on this test is the triangle over here. Do they touch? Yes, so we're not underexposed. Is there some gaps between this weird shape? There's some gaps, not as much as I would like. Did all of these very thin sheets print? Yes, they did. Can we see all the holes? Kind of. I think these last two are getting pretty closed up. Hard to see. All the pins are there, though. There's still some gap here in these blocks. The flower here still has some gaps in between the different petals. And the circle here didn't fully close up. All right, so let's look at the next one. See how we're doing. Not bad. We've got all the sheets right here. We've got the holes. It's closed up more. And sorry, this is also reversed. I printed it in reverse by accident. Didn't have time to fix it. We've got this is a little more closed in together. And the petals are definitely more filled in. And this is definitely starting to fill in quite a bit, the spiral here. You could just give another quick comparison between the two. The petals here, a little more gap. Still pretty closed in, but there's a bit of a gap. And here we're getting quite a bit worse between these ones, where everything's just a little bit more filled in. And then the last one is the navy gray. This is an older version of this print, so slightly different. But for the most part, I think to me it looks better. These holes are the same size, and this one I can clearly see them. I'm getting much more gap between the petals, much more gap between the circles. And I know I'm not underexposing this because I still have all the little pins and stuff like that. This one doesn't have the sheets, unfortunately. For the alphabet test, this one is nice and crisp. All the letters are, very, very crisp. On this one right here, we can see it's getting very pillowy and muddy and looks like balloon shapes. They've ballooned out. Definitely don't look as good. And over again, we're getting things back to a crisp. Very good looking, but not quite as crisp as the navy gray. So definitely the navy gray is winning, with the Build Sonic Gray taking second and the Tough Navy Gray taking third. And here's just some minis that I printed. This is the Flesh of the Gods. This is the War Guardian. Overall, it looks pretty good. Now, if you want to come and get a closer look at these yourself, we're going to put a link in the description so you can download this very large image and look at these yourself. Harder to tell on miniatures, which is why I generally don't use miniatures for comparison test. I think it's just so much going on. My eye has a hard time really looking at it. We can tell this one's definitely more reflective because the material is lighter and more transparent. And this material is slightly darker, a little more green, and this material's a little bit darker, a little more blue. But other than that, they look pretty identical. And then we've got the Tengen here by Black Forge Games. Now, I'm actually going to be doing a video on how to support a figurine, and I'm going to be doing it on the Tengen here. So that video is actually coming up after this one. So make sure to stay tuned to the Lychee Slicer YouTube channel for when that video comes out. But anyway, like I said, you can download this yourself and go check it out in the description below. Next thing I thought was pretty fun. Here's like a 10-pound sledgehammer. And here's a little thing that I printed using the Build Sonic Gray. It's like a tool thing. Let's see how it grips onto this guy and how it kind of pulls onto it. Mostly just grips through weight. Oops. All right, there we go. There you go, 10-pound sledgehammer held up by that. It's I've actually already tested this before, and I had it hanging for a bit, and I didn't see it starting to warp or bend, or I didn't see the teeth of this gear right here start to eat into itself. This gear right here. So it's been working pretty good. But anyway, fun little thing you could also do with this resin if you want to bend some resin hangers. There you go. So here we've got some pictures of some models that were printed with these resins. Now these models were created to have a very stylized aesthetic to them, so they're a little bit smooth, which if you've done resin 3D printing, hard surfaces is always a lot of fun, especially when it's really big parts because, like stepping in layer lines, it's just a blast. So here we can see we've got two models here, and there's some parts that are a little bit flimsy, especially if you plan on, like I said, taking them to different trade shows and a lot of traveling. And so let's go through here. Here you can see the actual colors that are being used. His cloak, you'll see, is a lighter color. That's just because I ran out of time, and that's a big cloak, and so I used a completely different resin just to get that thing out the door. So right here, what you can see is his belt, the parts around the lantern, her little pistola there, and including his staff right here. These ones are all made out of the sculpt, the Build Sonic Gray. And that's because these are parts that I wanted to be tougher, less warping, anything like that that could occur. Just anything that I was really worried about possibly snapping, breaking, or having issues with. I used this particular resin, or like I said, bending. Some pieces you don't want to bend, like this staff, it's rather long. Also, you might notice some seam lines in here. These are just simply, these had to go be painted. So they're just held together with putty right now. So there's a bunch of putties in the keys, so things don't fit as well as they will once it's finalized and glued and magneted like they're gonna be in the final, the final go. I will get pictures of these when they're all painted up. Unfortunately, at the time of making this video, they haven't been painted yet. I believe the artist just received them a couple days ago. But yeah, and the bases right here, the bases are actually solid. They're very heavy to give them some stability on the table. Those are printed with just the regular navy gray. And then the main bodies where it's very solid, it's gonna be hard to break. Even if you drop these things onto concrete from 10 feet up, they're probably not gonna break. Those ones I did using the tough navy gray. You can still see there's some fragile bits like her necklace and his hair that I still wanted to be rather strong, hence why I chose that resin. And moving on to more pictures, you can just kind of see close up. I think they turned out great, especially like I said, that smooth surface with resin can always be a lot of fun. And there's a picture of the artist. Some of you might recognize him. He's got his own channel, which he teaches people how to do modeling, 3D modeling and character creation. So maybe in the future I could have him on the show and he could kind of talk to us about getting started in doing your own 3D model creation. If you'd like that, let me know down in the comments below. Now, at the time of making this video, Siraya is running a promo for 30% off most products on their website for the end of summer deal. Now, the end of summer ends on September 3rd, 2025. So if you're watching this video before that date, I'd head over there now to try to get some resin like these. And if you're watching this video long after September 3rd, 2025, I'd still head over to their website just to kind of check it out. They're always running deals on awesome resins like these. All right, and I think that sums it up for this one. You know the drill by now. Like and subscribe to our Lychee Slicer YouTube channel. It really does help me continue to make content like this for you. If you haven't already joined us on the Lychee Slicer Discord channel, I would love it if you said hello. And as always, thank you for watching, and have a good day.